The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. You're giving veterans a voice today. Powered by WorkSimple, where we simplify your mission.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Lock in every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, for Tracer Rounds targeting veteran resources.
You wonder why life feels like chaos, like tracer rounds flying all around you? That's why I created the Tracer Rounds podcast. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, I help cut through the noise and point veterans to those resources they need. Since 2023, join me.
To hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Wreaths Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
And welcome back to the Tracer Rounds show. And you're on Military Broadcast Radio, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight's voice is to SEAL Team 6 Navy SEAL Don Mann. Welcome, retired, of course, but welcome.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for having me on the show.
So excited to have you on. You're a friend of my friend, and so you graciously agreed to come on, and so I really appreciate it. So I'm thanking Ace from the Bulletproof podcast for introducing us. So I was going to start the show, I think, with just maybe some of your background. Most people know about Navy SEALs and SEAL Team 6, but how did you decide to enlist? What were your reasonings? And then were you always wanting to go the direction of a Navy SEAL, or were you started in another direction and then pivoted mid career?
Well, you know, Terry, I really didn't have a plan set in my mind what I was going to do. And I knew that college wasn't going to work for me for 4 years after high school. I tried it for 1 year, and I knew I didn't have 3 more years in me. But I also knew, because of my father's influence, that I was going to serve our country somehow, somewhere. And I was very into physical conditioning and sports and running and lifting weights. And I was very physical, and I still am. I have been my whole life. So I knew I wanted to do something to serve our country, but I wanted to make sure it was a physical unit or physical command or physical service. But back when I joined back in the 70s, there wasn't much known about the Navy SEALs or underwater demolition team. You heard about the frogmen sometimes in movies, but so I thought what I would do is go join and be a Marine. And I wanted to be a Marine. And, I raced motorcycles. That's what I did. I raced motorcycles and I had fun. I didn't really have a plan other than ride as fast as I could and try to do well in the races every Sunday. But I did know I needed to serve. I wasn't going to sit in college for 3 more years. I wanted to go serve. So I went to the Marine Corps recruiter. And I didn't know a thing about the military other than my father was in the military and all of his brothers and sisters. They all joined when we got attacked. And when Pearl Harbor was attacked, my father was in high school and he quit and joined the Navy. And his 2 brothers quit doing what they were doing. They joined the military, and so did his sister. So my grandparents had 4 stars on their door. And when there would be a show or a special on with military people losing their lives or killed, my father would really have tears going down his eyes. He was very sensitive, but especially when it came to vets. So this rubbed off on me, I know, and I'm glad it did. So when I went to see that Marine Corps recruiter, not knowing anything about the military, believe it or not, I had no right to be, but I wasn't impressed by this guy. I thought I'd be so blown away by a Marine Corps recruiter, and I had nothing to compare him to. But it was probably his reaction to me. You know, I had long hair. I was a skinny kid. He's probably thinking, yeah, we don't need any more of you in our military. So I went next door to the Navy, and Diamond Jim Brady was a recruiter. I remember him still today. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, well, have you checked out the SEAL program? And he and I connected right away. I said, no, I don't know anything really about that. So he showed me this video, Men with Green Faces, and it changed my life. It showed all these guys really, really fit, doing tons of pull-ups and sit-ups and push-ups and running down the beach and blowing things up and skydiving and diving. So that movie, that video changed my life, because at that moment, everything in my mind was straight. I had one thing I wanted to do, and that was all. And not having a backup plan was a good plan for me, because I wanted to be a SEAL and nothing else. When you're going through Hell Week, or you're going through BUDS and you're being beat up pretty badly and tortured, some people call it, some people might revert to going to that backup plan. I didn't have a backup plan. And if I did, it would have been easier to switch gears thinking, yeah, maybe I'll go be a helicopter pilot instead. But if not having a backup plan helped a lot. So, I joined the military, joined the Navy. My father was Navy. He was very proud. That made me happy that he was so proud. And I did visualization for years on how hard it was going to be, because it took me a while to get there, because I had to sign with the Marines at first, because I was a corpsman, which is a medic, and the SEALs didn't want brand new medics who didn't know their job yet. So I was serving with the Marine Corps, and I loved it. I was basically an athlete, and they sent me all over the world to compete in triathlons and bike races and running races and marathons. So I was a paid athlete while I was with the Marines, and they liked it, and I loved it. And I considered every event, every training event, every workout session, and every race, it was getting me better prepared for BUDS, SEAL training. And it was just perfect. Everything was just perfect. And then when I went to BUDS, every day I trained, I also visualized. And I imagined how hard, the long runs were going to be, or those cold ocean swims in the middle of the night. I just tried to imagine how it would be not sleeping for a week in Hell Week. And I visualized this. And I did a really good job of visualizing it, because in my mind, I made everything much more difficult than it actually was, which was a nice surprise for me, because every day I get back to the barracks and I think, today was a hard day. It was tough. It was a tough day today, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it was. It was easier than I thought it was. I said that every night during BUDS for over 6 months. So the visualization helped, and not having a backup plan helped. And knowing I absolutely was positive what I wanted to do for the rest of my life helped. And all the push-ups and sit-ups and running, all that also helped. That helped a lot, but not as much as the visualization or the mindset and the focus on the objective, on mission completion, which is becoming a SEAL. And then I wanted to serve at SEAL Team 1, 2, and 6. And those were the 3 SEAL teams I served at. So everything went according to plan.
I really resonate with what you said about visualizing your success, or visualizing what you're doing, or how you're going to compete, or how you're going to proceed with this goal, because people that don't do that seldom really make their goals that they're trying to attain, because they're not seeing themselves in that space or in that mindset or in that mind frame. So I love that you say, I really visualized myself going through this, and I really thought about how it was going to be. And I think that's so important. And I love that you mentioned that, because I have to agree that that's one of the surest ways to get through and get to your goal.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I after I got out, I did 21 years, then I did 25 years with the CIA afterwards. So It wasn't an abrupt change. It was like a nice, smooth transition. Still at all the war zones, still seeing the team guys. And you're still where the action is. It's not as nearly as difficult as being in the SEALs during those years. The CIA was much, much easier, of course. But so it was 45 plus years or so that I committed myself to the military and the government. But I loved doing it. But I have to say, when I left the military after 21 years, and I got out and I was dealing with civilians, and working with civilians and agency people who are civilians, I realized, wow, what is wrong with other people? In the SEALs and the teams, it makes sense. Like, we had high goals really big objectives. And we fought hard, we worked hard, we trained hard to meet those. And then we succeeded most times, not all the time, but you try and try and try and try. And what I classify that as a macro goal. And then you just make these little mini micro goals. You accomplish it. And before you know it, you're up at the macro goal level and you make it. But when I got out and I realized the civilians didn't think like that, I realized, wow, a lot of people are wasting their lives because they seem to set their goals low. Yeah. Like a banker or a cook or a doctor or something, but they seem to set their goals low. They reach that goal and they go home and they're happy with themselves. And still to this day, I don't understand how people would want to be like that. And I give talks around the country, and that's one of the things I talk about. And I think it wakes up when people hear something like that. They realize, wow, that could be me. Because we all have a full potential, and there's a big space here that you have to fill to get to that full potential. And then at the bottom, it's easy to reach small goals, but then when it's all over and you're old and you're close to, the door's shutting on you, then at some point there's no more space or time to go complete those goals. The window's shut and the door's shut. And you're not going to be able to accomplish those goals. And you're going to be one of those people who said, I wish I did. I could have done that. I should have done that. And I was positive I was not going to be one of those people. And I love it when in conversation or in talks or whatever, or in training, that issue comes up. And I love it when a light goes on and someone says, wow, I know what you mean. I got to get to work. I do these talks, and once was this little old lady came up to me, and her husband was on a walker and he had oxygen, and they must have been in the 90s. I mean, it's probably in the 90s, I would say. And she came up and she said, I really like that point. That meant a lot to me. I mean, we're going to push ourselves harder. And now when I take him to physical therapy in the morning, I'm going to make sure he gets worked harder. And I think that lesson could work for anybody. I wish I got that lesson when I was younger, is what I wish.
It's so definitely. I mean, like you said, if you don't set your bar high enough, then when you reach that goal, then you're like, well, that was uneventful now. Like I reached that, and now what? So you do have to have a plan, and you do have to have small things, stepping stones to get to the bigger goal. So I totally agree that, just setting your bar very low leads to a very dissatisfying result, I think, because when you reach, okay, I've got this goal, but like I'm not as happy with it as I thought I would be when I got here. But if you're reaching small incremental goals and then eventually reaching this bigger goal, then you're like, yeah, I really did something.
Yeah. And no matter how much it hurts, we have a saying in the SEAL teams, pain is good, extreme pain is extremely good. But there's so much more to it than some tough guy t-shirt, because there are two types of pain. And if we decide to stay in our comfort zone and stay in our little bubble and never reach out of it, we'll stay in that bubble all our life, and then life's over, and then it's done. But if you push outside of that bubble a little bit, you reach beyond what you feel your boundaries are, and you stretch those a little bit, it's going to be uncomfortable, and there's going to be some pain, if you want to call it pain, but it's uncomfortable getting out of your comfort zone. But you expand the bubble and you expand it, and the more you are uncomfortable by pushing out of your boundaries, the larger that bubble becomes. And the two types of pain, so say for instance, somebody wanted to go through SEAL training and they've got to do a lot of pull-ups, and one guy's doing pull-ups and he's supposed to do 28 and he's at 21 and he's suffering and he's whining and he's saying, I can't do it, and he quits. Yeah. For the rest of his life, he's going to have the bad type of pain. He'll have that permanent pain of regret. He could have kept going, but he quit. So now for the rest of his life, he's got a regret that's not going to go away. The other guy, man, I can do 3 more. All I have to do is 3 more. If I could have that temporary pain, I put through that pain, that comes with just having discipline. If I can knock out 3 more, then I'm one step up, and there's a chance I'm going to make it through SEAL training or Ranger training or anything. But the temporary pain of just having the discipline to push through the pain, that pain's not bad. The pain of giving up and saying, I'm too tired, I'm too sore, I'm too uncomfortable, that lasts for a lifetime. And if I could say, Terry, you know, I like pushing myself, and I always have. I just enjoy it. But I was doing 2 Ironmans in a day once. And,
Oh, my goodness.
And Ironman usually takes 11 or 12 hours or something like that. But when I did the last time I did Hawaii Ironman, it was under 12 hours. And then when I retired from the military, I was in my 40s, I was thinking, well, if I could do 1 Ironman in under 12 hours, I should be able to do 2 in a day. The math made sense to me. And,
Right.
and then my mind was set that nothing's impossible. You set a goal, the macro goal, 2 Ironmans, and now the micro goals are just longer swims, longer bike rides, longer runs. And so that all worked. But I did the swim, it's 4.8 miles, and then 224 miles on the bike. And that wears out your legs. You know, you're just tired, and your legs wobble and everything. But then you have 2 marathons to run. And the first marathon, I love the way I was thinking. I was thinking, wow, I only have 1 marathon to go. And just to talk about a marathon like that to myself made me laugh, you know. But, but at mile 32, I started seeing white spots, and I started wobbling a little bit on the run. And I started, excuse me for saying this on the show, but I was vomiting and spitting up bile. And green bile was choking on it, actually. And then I passed out. And I had passed out a number of times by pushing myself too hard. But this one taught me a really good lesson. Because when I woke up, I had all the bile in my mouth. And I saw these cyclists and runners going by. And I was wondering, what am I sleeping outside for? And I didn't know how long I was out for. I was thinking, wow, I'm in the middle of a double Ironman. I got to get up and finish. So I finished the race. I got the medal. But I realized something. Anytime I may have said something like, this is too hard, I can't put up with this pain, this is too physically taxing for me. If I ever said anything like that, I was wrong, because I realized that day, if something really is too hard or too taxing or too challenging and you're doing something physical, your body will let you have the break it needs. You'll pass out, you get the break you need. When you get up, you're okay. And that's what happened. So anytime I ever hear anybody saying, oh, I'm too tired, this is too tough, this is too difficult, I remind them that if it really is, your body will do you the favor. You'll pass out, you'll get your micro nap, your cat nap, you get up and you can finish your objective. And so those are those things that happened in my life. I turned them around and made it a good lesson that fueled me for years to come.
That's amazing. Did you win some kind of record or something, or were you to do 2? Has anybody else ever done that? Oh,
yeah. There's a group of them called International Ultra Triathlon Association. So, and I have to say, I can't brag by any means. You know, an Ironman, a lot of people have done Ironmans. A double, quite a few people have done doubles. There have been people who have done triples.
Wow.
And then they put on a decker, which was 10 Ironmans. And then they did a double decker, which is 20 Ironmans. You do 1 a day, basically. And then the last big one was in Italy. It was 30 Ironmans in a row. So my double, it was nothing. I mean, those guys use those as a little micro goal to reach to the macro goal, which would be 30 Ironmans.
Wow. That's impressive, though. I mean, 2 in a day, that's impressive. I would be good to do 1. My body would say, okay, you need to take a nap right now. You're done here. We're going to pass out, and then we'll let you maybe get back up. We'll see. We'll have a discussion.
That's funny. Yeah, but then what happened after doing those, you know, 2 Ironmans only takes 1 day. Yeah. But then I went on to 3 and 5 and 10 and 12 day events in the mountains and in the jungles and in the deserts where it wasn't just some road or park where you're running and biking and swimming. And you have everything on your back, and they were called adventure races. And you really pushed yourself to hallucinations in those. Yeah. And it's really bleeding, passing out, or hallucinating. And I love doing those adventure races. I mean, I was a race director in the United States. I put on the biggest races in the world. I competed at a high level, and I had an adventure racing camp. So I loved adventure racing. And basically, it's every sport. It's like mountain bike riding, trail running, whitewater swimming, climbing, rock climbing, rappelling, jumaring. But it's back to back to back, and the clock doesn't stop. And adventure racing, I loved it. It was because you're with 3 or 4 other people on your team. It was kind of like being on a SEAL squad or in a platoon, except for you're not carrying a weapon. You have this objective that's a long ways away, a lot of challenges to get to it. And so it reminded me of the teams, except for, you're not trying to, avoid being shot or shooting anybody like that. But I loved it. The sport doesn't exist anymore at the big levels like it used to, because it's so expensive. It was filmed, we filmed them, it cost millions of dollars to film them. And the average TV viewer who sits on the couch and watches TV, they couldn't relate to these people doing these 400 and 500 and 600 mile races. It was like crazy. And it wasn't great TV for them because they couldn't relate to it. So the sport kind of went away. But wow, it was a lot of fun while it lasted.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I would love to do something like that, and that would be a big goal, and then I'd have to do some micro goals to get to that big goal. But I mean, I think it would be very a true test of what you can really endure if you're doing something like that. So that's really impressive that you're able to put on those shows and be able to do all that. So you still compete at a high level, even if you're not doing those shows. What are you doing now around fitness and around keeping up your mental stamina and your physical stamina?
Well, if you don't mind, if I can say something before I answer that. You were talking about you doing adventure racing. What came about with it started off with marathons and got bigger to the triathlon and then got bigger to the adventure race. And then it took a step backwards and went downhill a little bit. And obstacle course racing got very, very popular. And I ran a company for obstacle course racing called Battle Frog. Excuse me. And it was basically you're in a park and there's obstacles and you run to the obstacles. But that took the world by storm. And people, if they work out all the time or they don't work out, they still have a blast. And it usually takes an hour to 3 hours to do a whole obstacle course race. But Spartan, and actually Joe, the creator of Spartan, he's a good friend of mine. We used to do a lot of races together. He started Spartan, and it's a huge, huge worldwide success. And people from all walks of life do these. And the best thing is it takes a lot of people who've never really decided to do something physical and got them out to do something physical, because you don't really have to train, or you can go on the other side and train hard and do really well. But it could be anything in between too. So I wanted to bring that up too. But what I do, Terry, now, I work out every day still. I'm always going to. But if I could tell you, it was kind of an evolution what happened to me. And back in the early days of the Hawaii Ironman, the King of Kona is who he became known as. His name was Dave Scott. He was the greatest triathlete in the time. And before he won his first Ironman, we were in Hawaii, and I was getting ready to do my second one. And I said, Dave, how do you stay in such great shape? Not knowing he was going to be the greatest triathlete in the world. But he said, well, Don, I just don't take any days off. I work out every day. The doctors don't like it. People say I'm wrong for doing it. But a light bulb went off. And for the next 22 years, I didn't take a day off because of him saying that to me. But then what I did, Terry, I think this is a lot more important than just exercise every day. I talk to a lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of older people, all types of people. I host 3 TV shows. So I'm always talking to people. And a lot of people ask me, hey, how can I become a SEAL or a Marine or a mountain climber or something physical? And I'd usually like stutter or find something to say after a while, but it wouldn't be quick and it wouldn't be witty or anything that I could duplicate the next time somebody would ask me. But then it dawned on me what Dave Scott said to me that day, just work out every day. I took his advice he gave to me and I expanded on it. And now it doesn't only have to be to become a SEAL or a firefighter or a cop or anything. I think it works for anybody in any category of life they put themselves in, any profession. And that is, all you have to do is 4 things. When I was working out every day without a day off, I knew I had to brush my teeth every day. I knew I had to eat, and I knew I had to work out. And I didn't let anything stop me. So now I just expanded that. Instead of doing 1 thing every day, the workout, now just do 4 things every day. And I'll use the example of if you want to be a SEAL. So if you want to be a SEAL, although it could be for a piano player, it could be for a cook, it could be for anybody. But if you want to be a SEAL, every day, number 1, do something that makes yourself stronger. And don't expect someone to give you that on a silver platter, like, oh, good, here's a good CrossFit workout, or here's a Pilates workout, or here's a home gym workout. You figure it out because you need to have that ambition and resourcefulness to figure out how I'm going to get stronger each and every day, and record it and make sure, yeah, yesterday I did 80 sit-ups, today I've got to do 82. But you just figure out, every day do something to make yourself stronger. And number 2, again, if this person wants to be a SEAL, every day do something to make yourself faster. And I hope that's not too blurry behind me. I just noticed it's kind of blurry.
It's supposed to be blurry, so it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Every day do something to make you faster. So hill sprints, fartleks, track workout, sprints in the pool. You figure it out, but every day just get out there, have a plan, and do something to make yourself faster. But then I think more importantly, every day do something to make yourself smarter. So if you do want to be a SEAL, learn and research what the SEALs were doing in World War II when it was underwater demolition team. Learn what they were doing in Korea and Vietnam. You know, they really made the name for themselves in Vietnam. Learn about those small unit tactics and all that they did with the going from the water into the jungles. And then Gulf War and Iraq and Afghanistan and the 90 plus countries they're in now. Study what they're doing. And then learn to parachute. Go take a skydiving course. Learn to dive. Take a diving course and learn to shoot. No weapons. No handguns, long guns, and shotguns. And every day do something to make yourself smarter. So you're getting stronger every day and faster and smarter. But then most importantly, every day go out and make sure you do something good for somebody else. That could be anybody. It could be the janitor who can't get the trash bags out of the basement of the school. It could be your mother doing dishes. It could be the man next door, raking his leaves. But just be in the habit of always wanting to help people. And because then if I talk to a 12 or a 13-year-old boy or a 70-year-old man, it really doesn't matter. But I love it when I'm talking to younger people, because then I can say to them, you're 12 or 13 now. If you stick with this goal of becoming a SEAL or a Delta Force member or a Marine, or you just could be the strongest person at selection when you show up. And you just might be the fastest. And you're probably going to be the smartest. But most importantly, you're the guy everyone wants on the team because you're so used to doing good things for people. And in the teams, when we have a really tight team, a squad or a platoon or a squadron, when it's really, really tight, the one thing you notice is everybody's worrying about each other and taking care of each other. And like, for instance, the commanding officer, he might not be taking care of himself, but we all are taking care of him. And he might see that, Jimmy over here is just working 18, 20-hour days and not taking a break. So we look out after him. And so we look out after our teammates and they look out after us. And so that 4th step of always doing something good for somebody makes you a really good teammate and a team player.
I love that advice. That's great because some people forget one piece of that or don't put all those pieces together. And you're right, they do make a whole person and they do make the person everybody wants to be around. Because I think if you're trying to reach your goal, you should put yourself with people that are doing what you want to do or you want to learn something that they know about. So it's good to put yourself in the room with those people because you're going to learn something just by being around them, and you're going to elevate your own desires or your own goals by just hearing them talk and hearing what's going on with them. So I love that advice to really just be in the moment and really do all the things you need to do, but then and then adding that kindness piece and just being the person that will open the door or that will pick up the trash or that will just do something good for somebody else. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think that's what Dave told me back, in the Ironman days. It made us great athletes by taking that advice, but how you just said it, it makes you a better person if you're more well-rounded. Work out hard, bring yourself to the point of exhaustion. That's great. But also work on getting smarter, and whatever you're doing as a profession, get better at it and learn more about it, and then help your teammates and be the teammate everybody wants on the team.
So agree with that. That's great advice. So what would you say is your biggest takeaway from your military service?
Well, it's funny you asked me that now. If you asked me 5 years ago, I might have a different answer. But I look back, I'm so proud of being part of the military and serving where I served and the guys I served with. And I learned so much from that experience, 21 years. And we all had something in common. We all raised our hand to defend our country. And all of us would do whatever it took. We would salute and we'd go. And whatever it took, we did it. And we loved it. And we were there for that reason. And we always wanted action. We wanted action. We just wanted to be sent wherever the action was. We call it chasing the rainbow. So I have a little feeling of guilt because when I came in, Vietnam was all over, and before the 9/11 occurred. So those years there, compared to today, they were relatively very tame years. So I have a sense of guilt that I didn't do enough. Well, only based on what people are doing now. And we had it easy in the fact that we raised our right hand to serve our country. Now, the question is, are we doing it for our country? What do we do? What's the cause of this war? What's the reason for this war? Are we being told the truth? And you're hearing that all the time now. We didn't question it at all. But now it's, is that the truth? Is that really why we're going in? And you can't really have a military who questions that. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous for our country to have young folks who have social media and they see what's going on all over the world. And then if you realize you're in this war, and then you find out years later the war wasn't really for what you raised your hand to go fight and risk your life, sacrifice your life maybe to do, it was for a reason that we were lied to. And that really bothers me. So that's why I say, if you asked me 5 years ago, my feelings weren't as strong then as they are now, that we need the truth and we need people to fight in our military and we need great people in the military, but we owe them the truth. And I don't like it at all if I feel that our young folks are going into the military or going into war based on a lie. And I don't have a specific really why I'm saying that, but you can only imagine there's been a lot of talk lately in the last couple of years that, a lot of reasons we've gone into war weren't really the reasons we went into war. And that bothers me more than anything for today's generation.
Yeah. So speaking of your service and speaking of things that have gone on, you're an author. And so you have a series of books. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your books and about the series and what kind of information or what kind of things somebody can expect in those books?
Sure. It all started in 1998, where a politician said to me, Don, you race at the highest levels, you put on the biggest adventure races in the world, and you're teaching people. Why don't you write a book? I said, no, I don't want to write a book. Last thing I want to do is be behind a computer. I don't want to write a book. So speed it up now, all these years later, I just finished book number 25.
Oh, wow.
And, but I enjoy the process. Most of the books, a lot of them, I want to say a lot of them, it wasn't my idea to write them. I was asked to write them by either a publisher or somebody. And so I wrote the first book on adventure racing. And then when I went to work for the agency, I taught weapons and tactics and small arms. And my boss said, Don, you got so much information on this stuff. Why don't you write a book? I said, I don't want to write another book. It's a pain in the neck. I don't want to write a book. He said, look at all the material you have. Plus, as a training officer, I was a SEAL training officer, and then at SEAL Team 6, I was the advanced training officer. So I was a sponge for information, always trying to figure out what the best units in the world were doing. Never giving away a secret, of course, but
Right.
Training you can talk about up to a certain point, then you don't talk about it anymore. So I decided to write that book. And then the Navy contacted me. They said, the Army has a survival manual. The Air Force has one. The Marines do, but the SEALs don't have a survival manual. Would you write us a survival manual? I said, no, I don't really want to write another book. They said, well, we'll pay you up front and you can have an extra year to write it. I said, okay. So this went on for 25 books. But, I have to say, Terry, and I liked all the subjects I was writing on. And the last one I just finished, it's called Two Worlds, and I'm working with an Afghan national. And this book was very moving for me. His family was threatened by the Taliban, his whole existence. He was very poor and starving. His father was killed. He was just lucky to be alive. Once they found this little head of lettuce on the lawn, and he snuck it home. His family ate off of that lettuce for like a week. And then after the war started, he was offered a position with like 900 other Afghans to go to this big warehouse because the military was going to hire people. And he got selected to be a linguist. And so he learned to speak English, and then he became an interpreter. So then he did really, really well, and then he joined the military as an interpreter, the U.S. military, and then he got to work with SEAL Team 6, Blue Team, which is where I came from. He became an interpreter, so he went on all these raids and missions, and when you kick down the door and you go through and do these raids, he was usually like number 2 or number 3 man, because he had to talk to all the people before the shootings sometimes would start. And he was fast roping out of helicopters. He did like hundreds of missions. And so it's tragic in a way, because when that disaster happened and Afghanistan fell, and you saw all the pictures on the airport, the runway, and people grabbing on the plane, trying to leave with the plane leaving. Well, that day, all his hopes and dreams were crushed, because up to that point, when the Americans came in, now people were singing again, they were dancing. There was a renewed sense of life in Kabul and in Afghanistan. But then we gave away all those weapons. We made basically the 7th largest military in the world by everything we gave away. And worse than that, we gave away a list of all the names of the Afghans who assisted us in fighting the war. I don't know why we did that, but we did. And there were rumors that Taliban was going door to door, cutting out people's tongues who helped us. That's not a substantiated rumor, because I researched that when I was writing the book. Yeah. But so anyways, Khalib, he had a terrible, terrible life, but then he was so happy to be part of the United States. He only knew the United States through Hollywood and the movies. And now he's able to work with a tier 1 unit. And then everybody's gone home. Everyone's gone home. And now the Taliban's threatening if they found him, they were just going to kill him. And it took him a couple of years to finally get permission to get to the United States. And then what he did, he became an Army Ranger. He went to Ranger training, and he did that for years up until recently when he joined into law enforcement ranks and became a police officer. So all he wants to do is give. And his country, he lost his country, he lost his family, but he just kept giving and giving and giving. So a story like that, it's not my story at all. I just helped write the book for him. I mean, that something like that really excites me, especially all he wants to do is get his story out. So people knew what really went on beyond the news headlines.
Yeah, there's always the story, the public-facing story, and then there's a story behind the scenes that no one really knows about. You know, they only see what wants to be presented or what's palatable, but not the other half of it. Like you said, you know, being in desperate poverty and needing a way out, and then, you know, doing all these amazing things and then kind of being forgotten when we left. So that's kind of double-edged sword, like you said, two worlds.
You know, Terry, on that, I went on a Zoom call with a bunch of SEALs from Team 6 right after that happened, and some really tough guys I respect so much. One guy broke down and started crying on the phone call, and another guy was trying to help him out, and another one was sobbing. And one said, you know, when you're in the military and you spend 20 years in the military, usually you lose 2 or 3 people close to you, you know, relatives, maybe a parent or a brother or sister, and maybe a handful of friends. Said, I've lost over 40 close friends, all in Afghanistan. And now we're giving it up. I just need to make sense of it. It's what he was asking for. He says, guys, help me make sense of this. I mean, my whole adult life I was fighting for this country. And then what, we give it away? Well, what's the point? What's the point of all that? And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier on. We went into Afghanistan because they had terrorist training cells, terrorist training camps. I can't imagine any SEAL platoon not being able to wipe out those terrorist training camps. I don't believe it takes full military invasion to be there for 20 years.
Right.
And that's what I mean. We don't always get the truth. That's what I'm talking about. And I know we went into Iraq because Saddam was, we were told that he had weapons of mass destruction. And I've been to Iraq and I've been to Afghanistan so many times. But I remember when the CIA director came into Iraq, like weeks after we invaded. And he was wearing body armors, George Tenet. And we were just a handful of us in there. He said, guys, don't waste your time looking for weapons of mass destruction. There aren't any. But we got the intelligence that was faulty, and we based the whole war planning on that faulty intelligence to find out that the intelligence was fake, that we went in. Why we stayed for 20 years is another question I would like to know the answer for. So we didn't, you know, you could say, yeah, we did these roads, we built those schools, but it wasn't worth all the American lives we gave up. And you know, that's what I think anyways.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. And, you know, we're operating on what we know. And then when we find out later that it wasn't the way we thought it was, it is very disheartening. And then losing lives and creating this whole scenario for the people of Afghanistan, Iraq, all the different countries that we touched is a hard pill to swallow, because, you know, they were something when we were there, and then they're another thing when we're gone. So we put them in harm's way if we couldn't take them with us. So it is very disheartening. I agree.
And so when Khalid asked me to write his book with him, I said, no, I really don't want to write another book. I said, I can send you a bunch of great writers who would love to help you. And he said, no, I'd like you to work with me. But the more I heard of his story, I was thinking, these are the stories that have to be told. This is what writing should be about. This is information. Unless you read something like this or hear something like that firsthand, you don't really know what happened over there. And now we're hearing it from a guy who lost his brother and his father while he was there, and he gave his whole life to service, and not only to his country but mainly to our country. He loves both countries.
Yeah. Wow. So did you train yourself to write, or did you get any formal training, or were you ever interested in writing? I know you said you didn't really want to write one, but had you played with that before, or had you started down that path before
I
writing all
think
these books?
I think in high school, English and writing were probably the subjects I liked least. And I think if my English teacher knew I was going to read a book, never mind write one, she'd probably be rolling over in her grave right now. But I had zero ambition to write or anything like that. But what changed is when I really got into a subject, then writing was part of really being into it. Not only understanding it and learning it and being fully engulfed in whatever that happened to be, if it was a sport or training or the SEALs. If I got into something 100%, writing kind of went with that. So it took me a while to adjust to being a writer. I still don't even call myself a writer, but I think it's part of the process of really loving what you're doing and to write about it. Because, like, for instance, when I do talks, I do a talk, it takes an hour long. I can't get nearly any of all the thoughts that I want to get out. So I wrote a book on that talk. And so it helped me with my talks. And for adventure racing, there's all that stuff I put in that book. I'd hand the book out and then we'd just use it for reference. And then also I did some series, and the series were based on what most likely could be happening overseas without giving away any secrets. And so that was educational. And so I always had a purpose in it. And boy, writing, unless you're like a well-known writer, I don't think anybody does it for the money, because you can't really do it for the money. You have to do it because you love it. And I didn't start loving it until it became part of whatever it was I was writing about, because that was part of what I was doing at that time.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read one yet, and I've put the link in the chat, and I'm getting ready to order some, because I am interested to see what you're writing about and how you're writing, because I think with all the books you've written, you must be really good at it, because you're really making a name for yourself in the author world. So I'm really looking forward to delving into those. And like you said, you're 100%, you're all in. So if you have a goal in mind, or you're doing something, you're all into that. You're not going to just put just a small amount of effort in it. You're going to put all your effort towards it. So I really love that. That's your way of being, is I'm just going to go all in, whatever that means, or for that moment or that thing. You can just tell. So I'm really interested in your motivational talks. Where do you go, and who all have you given a talk to? I'm kind of curious.
I think I've done about 300 of them now, and they're
Wow.
all over the country. Yep. And well, you know what? I love the connection that so I should back up by saying, when I was in the military, all I knew were military people. And then when I went into government with CIA, all I knew was military and government. So my world was really isolated. There's so much more of the world that I had no experience in at all. So that all changed when I started speaking with, health organizations, financial institutions. I started farmers, you name it. I've talked to probably every type of, career field out there. And I love learning about other career fields. It's when you're in the military, it's like the whole world is military. Everybody associate with, everything you do has to do with the military, which was great at that time. But if I had stayed like that for the rest of my life, I would have neglected learning about the whole rest of the world. And that's what speaking has done for me. And like, for instance, I had dinner with Monica Lewinsky at one of these talks. And it was her first time she came out in the open since everything that went down with her with Bill Clinton. And she had these big, pretty brown eyes, and they were all watery. And she was sad. And her clothes, she didn't look like she had much money. She looked kind of a little raggedy. And she was as nice as can be. And she stood up and said a few words. And she said, at one point in life, I was the happiest person in the world. I was in love with my boss, and who happened to be the president of the United States. And then one day I came into work, and the world attacked me. Not only my office, the White House, not only my family, not only the United States, but the whole world attacked me. I had to hide for years. For years, I had to hide. So I'm just coming out now to just tell people, just be careful what you say. Social media can ruin your life. So, but talking with people like her and, these sports legends, Magic Johnson, he was a blast to be with, and Evander Holyfield, another, super champion. And I love these people who are very well known to the whole world, but to kind of see a little bit of an inner side with them. It's I love that. And I get to do that with the talks, because usually sometimes I'm just teamed up with somebody, or I might be the main speaker, they might be the main speaker, and we switch roles. So learning about these other folks and learning about the audience, to me, is I love it. I love it. I had one guy, he had a big cowboy hat, and usually everything's pretty fancy, I always say, you don't have to waste all your money on me like that. I don't need all this, the limo and all that. I don't need anything like that. I just need a regular hotel, and, don't make a big deal of me, And I always tell everybody that. But anyways, there was this one place I went in Nebraska, and it was a big, like, warehouse with all farm equipment. I was thinking, this is different, this is different. And they're all older farmers in there. And I was thinking, what's my talk going to do to these guys? And the guy who set it up, he had a big, deep voice. And he came out to meet me afterwards, and he had a cowboy hat on, and he had one of those cowboy neckties.
The bolo, yeah.
Yeah. And he put his head down, and his eyes were all watery, and he put his hat over his eyes so I couldn't see him, and he was adjusting his tie. I said, that meant the world to me. That meant the world to me. He said, what you said hit me right here. So if I can connect with people, and they connect with me, vice versa, the connection's two-way, of course. To me, doing these talks for the last 25 years, whatever it's been, it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in all my life. Mainly because you learn about other people, and you learn their ways of life, and you just learn more about the world by learning more about these people. I love doing the talks, but I don't really have a category. It's called Reaching Beyond Boundaries. Just whatever you do, there are ways to make yourself, push yourself, so you can reach new levels. Is basically what the talk is about. Having macro goals and having the mindset that you can reach those macro goals is what it boils down to. So it works for any profession at all. And I just love. I hope that doesn't end. I want to keep doing those. It's kind of like you do all your things you do in life for a certain amount of years, then you write about it for a certain amount of years, and then you talk about it. So it's all kind of a process, I think.
Right, it is. So you're looking back and you're giving other people the information on either how to reach their own goals, or just how you attain what you were trying to do, and then they can relate it to what they're trying to do, even if the goals aren't the same. But like you said, you're touching hearts and you're winning minds, and that's what PSYOP does. But that's not your goal. But I mean, that isn't a center of influence, because just hearing you talk influences me. Like, where are my goals at? Where I've reached some already, but it's like, what was my bigger goal? Have I reached it? Am I going to reach it? And what do I need to do? What steps do I need to take to get there? So I really love that you really put that seed of hope or of excitement in people, and really get them to thinking what's next for them.
Well, thanks, Terry. And a lot of times I think of things I might say, I think, I wish I learned that when I was a teenager, or I was a younger man. I wish I heard something like that when I was younger, because it would have maybe set me straight, or set me on a straighter path, or done more on the path I was on. I think everybody can be reached somehow or another. I love talking with I feel terrible for them, but the people who have substance abuse issues, and I've talked to a lot of these people. I've taken them out mountain climbing. I took one of the guys up Became a heroin addict, and the rehab center said they'd like me to come talk at the rehab center. And this one person, his name is Ian. I said, I think Ian and I could probably bond if I could have him for a weekend. And this was in Denver, and we can go climb a 14,000 footer. It's just a hike, but it's a 14,000 foot hike, one of the mountains. And if you let me take him, he and I can just talk back and forth. I'm not going to, talk to him about how bad drugs are, but just to let him, we'll sleep on the side of the trail, we'll wake up, we'll start hiking. But when he starts seeing the sun come over the horizon and starts seeing the other snow-capped mountains, and then when we reach the summit, he's going to think differently of himself. And so we did that, and he was a young guy, a young, fit guy. The heroin got the better of him after, up to that point. But I said to him at the top, I said, Ian, you did such a great job hiking up here. And really, we have to be off the top by noontime. And I don't really like walking that much. You're fighting gravity. So you want to run down with me? And it's about a 3-hour run. It's like 5 hours left and 3. And he couldn't say no. Here I am, some old guy, and he's just a young guy. So he came down with me. And then I said, Ian, that was amazing what you just did. As a matter of fact, the weather's clear. There's another 14 or a half mile down the road. Let's go do another one. Not many people do 2 in one day. And he couldn't say no. He couldn't say no. So we went up there. This Yale college female was up there. And she goes, you guys moving fast. You guys moving really fast. We said, yeah, we just want to get up and down pretty quickly. And Ian already did one of these today. She goes, you guys already did one? So she had a crush on him, and she was trying to hang out with us. And she's in Yale. And we got to the top. I said, we run down. And she ran down with us. I said, Ian, that's amazing. That's amazing. And she asked if she could hang out with us. I said, I think I have you all weekend. Let's go do another one tomorrow. I said, 3 in 2 days is incredible. And she came with us. We got down, I did the same thing. And now when he's talking, he's falling asleep on me. And I said, Ian, let's just do one more. Let's just do one more. We have time for the 4th one. We could do 4 14ers in 2 days. And he did it. And he talked about that for years. And that girl was all over him. She goes, wow, you did 4 14ers in 2 days. And so what I love when things like that happen is the bond was being created. We liked talking to each other. We just felt comfortable with each other. But then being older and having experienced more life than he has, I think I found a way where I could let him make his own decision about pushing himself harder and doing something that he's going to be very proud of doing. And doing 1 14er was great. And then when he did 2 in 1 day, and then 4 in 2 days, so that carried him through for many, many years. Then he had a relapse, but then he came back to it, and then he became a mountain rescue person out in the mountains, and he went to school to be an EMT. So stories like that, when situations like that evolve like that, to me, it makes all that exercise, all that working out, all the talks, and you can pinpoint it to one person and help that person for who knows how long. It makes it all worth it to me. That's the payback right there.
Well, and that one person, then it goes to another person. So it's a ripple effect. It's like when you throw a stone in the pond, then you see the rings come out and they go out and they go out. So maybe you're impacting 2, 3, 10, 100, but how many lives are those people impacting? That's what you have to look at. Is it not, you just think, maybe somebody like me, like I talk to somebody, maybe I influence them to do something. And I'm like, well, it's just one person. But then how many people beyond that one person are impacted? So you going out and doing all those talks, you don't know how many people are being impacted in a positive way from all those people that have attended one of your sessions and really, resonated with what you said and then impacted other people on the other side of that. So I think your legacy is going to be huge, from all the people you've talked to that, they're like, that Don guy, he's really got something, like he's really got it figured out. And I figured it out because he gave me the tools. So then they're going to be impacting others. So I really think that you're doing amazing work. And I sure hope that you get to see a lot of those success stories come back to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you for that. And also, you're doing that as well. I mean, just doing what you do for a career, and you are serving veterans, and you're serving people who love veterans, and that's what you decided to do. So you're doing it each and every day. So I applaud what you're doing, for sure.
Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. So if you want to know more about Don, his information is there on the screen, and then his books on Amazon, the link is there, and it's also in the chat. So Don, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate our talk. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to reading your books.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Well, this is Tracer Rounds signing off.
Hi, I'm Beaker with Military Broadcast Radio TV. We're your virtual MWR, bringing veterans radio, podcasts, gaming, animation, 3D printing, and a community that never leaves you behind. Download our Roku or mobile app today.
Wisdom to share if you listen this week, so pull up a chair and stay for a spell. We're heading down a trail where good stories dwell.